Good evening. I'm going to call the special meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Wednesday, May 14th at 7 p.m. in the Nashua High School North Auditorium. The prayer will be offered tonight by City Clerk Dan Healy, and Alderwoman at Large Shoshana Kelly will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien. Alderwoman Timmons. Alderman Moran. Alderman Thibodeau. Alderman Govea. Alderman Lopez. Alderman Sullivan. Alderman Clements. Alderman Senate. Alderman Jettie. Alderman Tebow. Alderman Clee. Alderman Dowd. Present. Alderwoman Kelly. Alderman Wilshire.
Here.
You have 9 present, 6 absent.
Thank you. Also joining us this evening is Mayor Jim Donchis, Corporation Counsel, and CFO John Griffin. As is customary, I'm going to turn the budget public hearing over to the Chairman of the Budget Review Committee, Alderman Dowd.
Okay, before we get started, we have some rules we're going to follow relative to the budget public hearing this evening. This evening's budget public hearing will follow the following procedures in order of accounts discussed. First, the mayor will provide an overview of his FY 2026 budget, providing his thoughts on the various aspects of the proposed FY 2026 budget. When the mayor concludes his remarks, the chairman will open the microphone for those who wish to ask questions of the first item on the agenda, which is general government. Due to the fairness to everyone who wants to ask questions this evening, we are asking that you limit your time on each division to no more than 5 minutes. Please respect others' time and try to adhere to these guidelines. I'll be keeping the time up here, and I will pause it for the answer, not necessarily the question. The chairman will then open the discussion of each succeeding division, and questions may be asked on that portion of the budget only. Members of the public may approach the microphone and clearly provide their name and address in Nashua, followed by any questions they have on that portion of the budget. When they have concluded or reached 5 minutes, they'll be asked to return to their seat and may not ask any more questions about that portion of the budget at that time. When everyone has the opportunity to ask questions about that portion of the budget, we will move on to the next division for questions. You will have 5 minutes for each question for each division that you have questions for. Again, if you discover you have additional questions about a portion of the budget that has already been discussed, you may ask them at the conclusion of all divisions. And the first division that will be discussed this evening is general government. So please be respectful of city employees. Please address your questions to budget line items only, and do not attack any city employees for any reason. If you have questions about a division, make them to the division. This public hearing is to address questions you might have regarding the FY 2026 budget, so the alderman can consider the questions and asked and the answers presented. So with that, we'll turn it over to the mayor for, before that.
Mr. Chair, I just want to make note for the record that Alderman Tim Sennett is now in attendance as of 7:23.
Thank you. Before we get started, motion by Alderman O'Brien.
Chairman, I would like to make the motion to take from the table R-25-143, which is the pending fiscal year 2026 budget.
Motion on the floor is to take R 25-143 from the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. So the first item for discussion is the general government. Before that, the mayor is going to provide an overview of the budget.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank all of our interested citizens who have come to help us review the fiscal 26 budget. Of course, I want to thank the Board of Aldermen for working very hard to try to establish the appropriate balance between providing quality services for the citizens of Nashua in our schools, with our police and fire departments, public works, city hall, and on the other hand, trying to keep the costs to as reasonable a level as possible. We know, and we discuss this often, that property taxes in New Hampshire are high. We know that people have often a struggle trying to pay the bills, pay the property taxes and everything else that they need to take care of. And so we work hard to try to find any savings that we possibly can in terms of the operations of city government. But as you will see, when we go through the slides, 75 to 80% of city costs relate to the salaries, the wages, and benefits that we provide to city employees, all of whom work hard, and I want to thank them as well, our 2,800 or so city employees who serve the city citizens of Nashua every day in our various departments. But with that, I will take a moment to go through some of the overview and then turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, to go through the departments. Just as an overview, the general fund budget, which is the budget supported by property taxes, is proposed to be $360 million roughly, with a $360,683,000. The enterprise funds, which are kept separately, those being the landfill and the wastewater fund, total $50 million. The wastewater fund does not use any property, is not supported by any property taxes. The solid waste is a mixture because there's a certain income derived from the tipping fees at the landfill, but not sufficient to support all of the landfill and the pickup, the recycling and everything. So there's a transfer of tax money that goes into that enterprise fund to partially support it. So why don't we go to the next slide? So what we did at the beginning, I spoke with the aldermen. All were very concerned about trying to keep the budget down as much as possible. We spoke to the departments, urging caution because of the economic circumstances that many people are in. And we asked the departments to come in at a 3% limit for the operational portions of the budget over which they have control. Now, there are certain items where you will see they do not have control, and we've separated those out. But I want to thank all of the departments for doing this. They came in at this level. We received very important cooperation by all of the departments who appreciate the necessity to try to keep the budget as low as we possibly can while meeting the needs of our citizens. And the other guideline was no new positions. So let's go to the next slide. Now here are some of the costs over and above the kind of the 3% operational costs that really we feel the departments nor really the city doesn't really have control over, but which we have to be responsible for. At the top is medical insurance. Now, the insurance costs, and we have experts who deal with us, consultants who deal with us carefully, our benefits people every year. We are estimating a 9.1% increase in medical costs, which amounts to a $3.9 million increase. Now, 9.1 is a lot, but it is less than some places. Manchester's increase is significantly more than this for this coming fiscal year. The next is a problem encountered by the school department, which is the busing contract. So the contract with First Student expires at the end of June. So the school department went out to bid to provide the legally required transportation services for students at all three levels of schooling: elementary, middle school, and high school. The First Student was the only bidder, and they bid for a first-year increase of almost over 18%, or $1.7 million. I met with the superintendent, with the president of the school board, in an effort to try to work something out with First Student, but in the hopes that they might agree to a one-year contract or something so we could at least explore other alternatives, but they were not receptive to that, and therefore the school department had to enter the contract with basically the monopoly supplier for a 5-year term, the first year of which the costs go up, as I said, $1.7 million. We are at least talking about some ways to try to cut that in future years. A important change was made with respect to workers' comp laws with respect to firefighters. Firefighters, it is scientifically shown that firefighters suffer a much greater proportion of cancer. More firefighters get cancer, far more than the population at large. So the workers' comp law was changed to create the presumption that a firefighter who does contract cancer, it's work-related. And I think a justified change, but one that does cost, we're estimating that may add as much as, and this is the first year, so we'll see, but we're estimating that may increase workers' comp claims by $1.2 million. But we've had firefighters in Nashua who've contracted cancer, and it is a very tragic situation, and we just want to make sure that they are taken care of. The next thing is the county tax. Now, the county basically the county taxes the city. I mean, they receive money from all of the cities and towns in Hillsborough County, and Nashua contributes about 23% of the funds that they collect in taxes from the various cities and towns. This is based upon the proportion of assessed value that Nashua represents vis-a-vis the rest of the county in terms of the property tax assessments. Manchester contributes about an equal amount. Our tax bases are similar in value. And then the other towns contribute the rest. But based on the commissioner's budget passed by the 3 county commissioners, one from Nashua, one from Manchester, and one from the towns, they are suggesting to the county delegation a 23% increase in the county tax. This represents a this would represent a $3.2 million increase. Now, this is a massive increase from the county. That number, even though it's only a sliver of your tax bill, that $3.2 million would raise the entire tax bill by over 1%. So This is not final yet. This is just what we're dealing with right now. The delegation, which is all the state reps from the Hillsborough County, need to pass the budget. So we're going to be going to the state reps, asking them for some relief with this. I'm optimistic, hopeful that they'll be able to do something. But right now, based upon what we've been provided, this is the massive increase that we will be facing. And finally, the Capital Equipment Reserve Fund requires a little bit of explanation. What we have done for a number of years now is, first, the Capital Equipment Reserve Fund is the name for the fund out of which we buy city equipment. Some fire vehicles, police vehicles, some school vehicles, public works, all of the garbage trucks, recycling trucks, the landfill equipment, everything, parks equipment. And it amounts to $5 million a year, roughly, maybe a little more in some years. And so for some years now, what we've been doing is paying for the purchase of equipment, the so-called Capital Equipment Reserve Fund, out of the surplus that's generated at the end of the fiscal year. The surplus being the revenue which exceeds the estimates, and unexpended appropriation, money that was budgeted but in the end not spent during the course of the year. And that is what we've used to pay for equipment. Now, some members of the Board of Aldermen have made, I think, the valid point that really it would be better and more straightforward if we just put the capital equipment reserve, the purchase of equipment, in the budget rather than waiting to see if we get a surplus. So the capital equipment in reserve fund, the purchase of equipment, is in the budget for the first time in many years, and we've budgeted that for $2.5 million. Now, this would be a 2-year phase-in because we're probably going to need $5 million, but we may use some additional surplus this year, but over 2 years we can move the purchase of equipment entirely in the city budget, and that this year represents a $2.5 million budget items that didn't appear in the budget at all last year. So when you add those figures up, you see that it's over $10 million, and that's a significant impact on your tax rate, on the city, on the budget. But those are all items that we feel we have no control over, especially the top four. The fifth one, I mean, we could go without purchasing equipment, but that would, in the long run, cost us more money. So this is the most conservative and I think wisest approach that we can take. Next slide, please. Now, I just wanted to highlight a few of the items that surplus money was used for. These are all, none of these are operational items, really. These are all capital expenditures, which improve basically the infrastructure of the city. These have been appropriated at various times during the fiscal year that we are currently in, fiscal 25, FY 25. Police department needed a new training facility. They have it's hardly even to call it a building, but they have a building down in the mill yard. And Public Works moved the offices out to the landfill, so the Public Works space is being retrofitted for the police department right across the street, so they can train the officers in a number of techniques, including the exchange of gunfire indoors, and to improve safety for all of the police officers. I think you all know what happened with Stellos. Here we're trying to save money over the years. People keep saying, "Oh, it probably can last another year." Yes, it's got some problems, but it does pass the inspection. Well, it turned out this past fall that one weekend it really didn't pass and was not really safe, so we had to, on an emergency basis, appropriate the money. And now that is been done. It's a definite improvement, but it just shows you kind of the dilemma that the city often faces. It is not the only thing in the city where repairs are delayed in the hopes of, saving money this year. And often that works, but sometimes it doesn't. And this was one where we should have done it earlier. Next, Greeley Park improvements. The bid on this is going to come in less than the $1.3 million, but Public Works has done a very good job with that. But the Greeley House is another. The Greeley building, the stone building, is in the same kind of situation that Stellos was in. Well, it'll probably last, but who knows? And so that needed to be, the roof needed to be redone, and the bathrooms needed to be brought to ADA compliance, and a few other improvements that were needed at the park with a band shell and the like. So that was appropriated. City Hall HVAC, again, similar to Stellos. We could wait on this one, but it's many years old, and if it did fail in the wintertime, we'd have to shut down the building, which would be a disaster. So I think we wisely appropriated $1 million to the HVAC system to upgrade it to current workable standard. Hunt building renovations, we got a grant for this, but we needed to have local money as well. It's a historic building where in the rotunda, during the rainstorms, the water comes down like from the windows, like it's almost not even there. So that really needed to be fixed, and that was fixed, or that is being fixed right now. Heritage Rail Trail East, this is a local match of well over $1 million of state and federal money that will extend the rail trail that we have west of Main Street. It'll extend it east from Main Street to the Henry Hangar building. And finally, this last one, which probably you can't make hide nor hair of that one, that has to do with the fact that the time clocks which we use to keep track of overtime and the like are obsolete. We ran the risk of not being able to pay people properly, not being able to actually accurately measure overtime, so we needed to replace that system, and that's what that is. But the point of this is just to show that the city has a lot of infrastructure needs. We use cash to do these things. Another approach suggested by the alderman, something more conservative really than borrowing the money and paying it back over 20 years or whatever. Yes, we have to spend money in the short term, but now these projects will be done, and we won't have to worry about debt service, about interest, about debt payments, and we can look forward to other priorities. And let's go to the next slide. Just shows you a little bit about where the money is going. As you see, salaries and wages are by far the largest proportion of the city budget. Then fringe benefits is next. People often think that the debt service is like much bigger part of the city budget than it really is. It's really only, with all of it, all the schools, all the downtown stuff, everything, it's 6% of the city budget. And then there are various miscellaneous things that constitute the rest. Let's go to the next slide. And this shows you to what departments the budget goes. Schools, like any municipality, schools are the largest expenditure and the largest financial commitment the city makes, followed by police, fire, public works, and you see debt service there. But all the other departments, all the city hall departments, everything, health, everything, is 15%. So as you see, the main departments are the services that people rely on every day: schools, public works, fire, and police. Money well spent, but still, not costs a lot to keep the services at the quality level that we have. Can we go to the next slide? And this just gives you another little fix on it. You know, the salaries are going up 3.3% on average across the city. The medical benefits up over 9%. And then we've got other commitments, other fixed costs that need to be met. Just shows you in another form. Next slide. We're focused here on medical costs. As you see, this is the city that, well, this shows you like the escalation of medical costs. You know, this is again a nationwide, other cities and towns. Manchester's facing the same thing. Medical costs just go up and up and up. We have done some plan design changes to encourage people to move to a high deductible plan, which saves in the long run the employee and the city money, but still the costs keep going up, and this just shows you the last 4 years what the increases have been. Next slide. This shows you the county. The county, you know, has gone up from 12 million to 13 to 14, and now proposed by the commissioners 17. This is the county tax. As I discussed, the 17 million is a 22.9% increase. Again, we're hoping that the county delegation will be able to reduce this. So we're keeping our fingers crossed there. Next slide. Oh, next slide says thank you for your interest. Thank you to the departments for helping with the budget and helping us achieve a 3% increase for operations of the city, and for all of the service you provide every day to the citizens of Nashua. And with that, I'll go back to you, Mr. Chair, and be available to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Okay, the first division that we're going to cover this evening is General Government, the Mayor's Office, Board of Aldermen, Legal Department, City Clerk's Office, Civic, Emergency Management. The revenues are on, the page numbers for those are on 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 78, and 79. Please ask budget-related questions only.
Okay, my name is Fred Teboom, 24 Cheyenne Drive. I don't see too many people of the public here. Most people here are employees or special employees. Mr. Chairman, are we here to review R25-143? Question.
You have direct questions for those departments?
I have a question about R25-143. I'm starting as the general government. I'm starting at the very top. Are we here to discuss R25-143? Relative, let me refresh your memory in case you don't know what that is. Relative to the adoption of the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget for the City of Nashua General Enterprise Special Revenue and Grant Funds. They're familiar to you?
I'm not up here to answer questions. The departments are here to answer questions. If you have a department question, ask the department.
Are we here to review 25-143? Well, I guess if you won't answer, let me get into it, because I remember distinctly, Alderman O'Brien, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good. Making the motion to introduce this. This is off the table, it's now on the table. Or maybe the budget committee don't know that, but you have to be an aldermanic meeting. So, let me go to the bottom of the resolution. And it says, pursuant to NO 5145E, the accumulated sum of all appropriations of fiscal 2026 combined annual municipal budget pursuant to City Charter 56C is $474,506,185, a lot more than the mayor talks about. his remarkable numbers, if I have them right, added to, I think, 12.5 million. The budget we're talking about is $474,506,184. Hell of a lot more than 12.5 million. The other says the fiscal 26 dollar amount under the limit established by city charter is $33,012,181. Does anybody believe the city is presented here is $33 million under the cap? If they believe that,
Let me just take a moment to address that. The figure you're pointing to, I'm focused in these slides on the budget that our local property taxes support, because that, I believe, is what people are most concerned about. When you include the grants, the Title I grant supporting the Department of Education, our local schools from the Federal Department of Education, when you include the transportation money we get from the federal government to run the bus system, when you include various other federal grants we get for the health department, yeah, it raises our total number, our total expenditures, but those funds, those portions of the operations are not supported by city tax dollars. So I think that's why the focus on the core tax, property tax supported city budget. And as far as the cap goes, I mean, we go through this every year, Mr. Tiedlam. So we had a spending cap. The city made a minor adjustment. You sued to try to undo that minor adjustment, and I could get into what it is, but at this point, it's not even that important. The court looked at the spending cap and invalidated it, said it's not enforceable. You appealed to the Supreme Court. The city didn't even ask for that, but that's what the court did on its own motion. You appealed to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court agreed with the lower court and says it's not enforceable. In my words, it's invalid. So then the legislature got involved and they messed it up even more. So yeah, the calculation you see here is accurate, but it includes all the grant funds and everything else. What we're stuck with as a result of your lawsuits and the legislature getting involved against the recommendation of our national delegation. So I and Ben Clemens and some of the other aldermen have proposed that we just scrap this and start all over with a tax cap. We put that on the ballot, let's the voters decide, which I believe you are opposed to. So I think that's the only, to get some rationality to this system, I think that's the way to go, but you may disagree. But that's my response to the question about the $474 million and regarding the tax cap calculation.
okay, since you raised two issues here, I'm going to respond to both. You raised the issue of lawsuits. It is true that Judge Temple said we did not meet state law with the spending cap of Nashua. Correct. What he didn't recognize and never asked opinions on from either your side or my side is the cap grandfathered. So he said it was unenforceable, and you immediately jumped up and said the cap's unenforceable. We took it on appeal to the Supreme Court, and they did not look at the merits, and neither did Temple ever look at the merits. They just decided it's not enforceable without looking at the details. He went to the Supreme Court, and a 3-2 vote is quite rare in the Supreme Court in New Hampshire. They're usually 4-1 or 5-0. Voted in favor of Temple, saying it's not enforceable. I was very quickly approached by people, by senators, and by congressmen. No, members of the House, they call it here. What do we do about this? And I said, we got to fix state law to show explicitly it's grandfathered. The senator, forgot his name, I think it's Gray, not sure right now, asked me to provide the language that would fix it. I made two changes. The one says, notwithstanding that the laws are all uniform, the spending cap is valid, enforceable, legal, and everything else, even though it was passed before, I think it was 9 August 2011. There was no question at that point that the spending cap, as written, nothing was modified, not a change was made. Nothing changed except to grandfather the cap. In fact, Attorney Bolton in the mediation agreed with that. He said 56C, D, E, and F are valid.
Well,
So let me, no, you brought this up, let me conclude.
He's saying that's not true, but
I don't care what he says.
I agree. So Mr. Bolden is saying, he didn't say what you said, but
I have
look,
a signed
Mr.
affidavit.
T-Boom, you've brought not only the lawsuit that I described, you've brought subsequent lawsuits challenging all this, and you've lost every time. So I think at this point, the courts have made it very clear that whatever the city's doing, it's correct.
We're gonna go.
And can't we talk about the actual budget? Could we?
Mr. T-Boom, you've been already liberal with your time. You've exceeded the amount of time.
He brought up the question, I'm answering the question.
I did not count the time when he was speaking, just when you're speaking. If you have another question on this, ask it, but please wrap up and sit down so other people can ask questions on this portion of the budget.
Second point you brought up, I forgot.
Well, me too. I mean, we've had this debate so many times, I forget where we are on it, but where we are at this time.
For
but-
the citizens of Nashville, I'm back to the budget.
Your time has expired on this portion of the
Well,
budget.
That's my time has expired.
Yes.
It's a public hearing, sir.
So please sit down.
It's a public hearing.
No, there is a time limit, and it's set by the Budget Committee, and that's validated through legal. So if you don't sit down, I'm going to ask somebody in the back of the room to come and help you sit down.
Go ahead. The mayor interrupted me with his court question, which had nothing to do with the budget at this point. And now I'm going to explain this budget in a different way than the mayor did.
You challenged the cap calculation, so I was just explaining how we arrived at it.
Right, going into the court. Now, the
So
problem is,
this issue you've brought before the Board of Aldermen before, you've brought it before courts. It has nothing to do with why we're here this evening on the budget. It's a number that's presented to the Board of Aldermen by the mayor from finance and legal, and does not impact the budget one iota. All it does is give a benchmark as to whether we're over or under this item. So I would ask that you've expended your time on this portion of the budget, talking about something that doesn't even relate to this budget. So I'm going to ask you to sit down. You can ask questions on another part of the budget, another division, or you can ask questions, you can bring this up again at the end of the budget meeting.
I'm not going to stay around for this budget meeting, which I think is useless. The reason it's useless is you bring up an annual budget that compares this year's budget with last year's budget, and that says 5.8% of the general fund, which is a high percentage of increase, and you ignore completely all the supplemental budgets. In this case, you had a
Mr. T-Boom,
$45.2 million cap,
Mr. T-Boom, you've expended your time. I'm asking you to sit down.
$33
If you
million.
don't sit down, I'm going to ask
of
one of the people in the back to
supplemental
come help you.
Well, this is a kangaroo court, sir. You're not interested in listening about the budget. You're interested in presenting your point of view, pushing your illegal than local and state law procedure. So we'll have to go back to court, Mr. Mayor, because the court has never dealt with the details, and this budget chair only cares to push his particular point of view. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that has questions relative to general government, mayor's office, board of aldermen, legal department, city clerk, civil management,
I do.
energy?
I do.
Please, your name and address for the record.
My name is Bill Ferrio. My home is number 35 Indian Rock Road. Before you start the clock, could I ask about the agenda? Is there a reason why public services is not on the agenda tonight?
Public service?
Yes, cemeteries? Do they not have revenue and expenses?
I'm
In
not
this
sure
book?
who
They're
you're
in this
referring
book.
to, rather than,
They're in the mayor's book. With revenue and expenses, or what do you call it? Revenue and appropriations.
all the divisions are covered.
Okay, I don't see public services on the agenda. I don't see it on this one, I don't see it on the yellow one, the blue one, I don't see it. Maybe it's an omission, maybe there's a reason.
When you say public service, what do you mean?
The cemeteries,
Oh, the cemeteries, okay.
I didn't see them in this list, I don't
They're,
see it.
they're in there.
They're in the book, yeah, they're in the book, but they're not on this list
Oh, I see.
of,
Now, they do, they're they pay for them,
Divisions.
they have trust funds and they pay for themselves. I mean, the city, although they appear in the city budget, city money does not go to operate the cemeteries.
They just submit a letter to us because we have no control over their spending.
so that's the answer then. Okay. So-
They do have independent trust funds that are used to pay for their employees and all the maintenance and
One
stuff
other
like that.
agenda type question, if I could.
So I haven't started your time yet, so go ahead.
Okay. Mayor, do you still use this ClearGov tool to develop your budgets and share the budgets among the departments and publish reports?
Yes,
and
but I'm not.
fancy
and-
graph?
Yes, but I personally am not an expert, and so if you were going to ask questions about ClearGov, I guess it would be Megan, right?
So I wasn't going to ask details, I just want to know you still use it?
Yes.
And it probably created this book?
We use ClearGov, right?
Right.
Oh, John Griffin can help out.
John Griffin, CFO. Good question. I was actually prepared for the question. ClearGov, we've used historically the last 2 or 3 years to take our raw data, import it, so Excel spreadsheet, import the data to ClearGov. And as the mayor indicated, Megan is our expert in taking that ClearGov solution and creating the budget book. So this particular year, this budget that you're looking at, we were requested to try to get it in a little bit earlier. So this budget is 99.5% numbers with which the Board of Aldermen and others were interested in. We plan on issuing a proposed budget in ClearGov, and we're working on that as we speak.
You said that you take spreadsheet inputs to create reports. So it obviously can create a spreadsheet output as well.
Right, we've never done that, but what we have done over the last 3 years is we take,
But do you have that
I'm going to
capability?
guess here, we probably have 5,000 lines of data
Okay. But you
that-
certainly have the capability.
that are mapped to the accounts in ClearGov. We hope to, in the future, start with ClearGov and then download from that, and that would probably be responsive to your request.
But you could
So
create.
in
you could-
summary, to get any data out of ClearGov once it's produced is not going to come out in this format.
Got to come out as a spreadsheet. You could have created this book as a spreadsheet, right?
How it's done with, this is the product of our
Okay, I
taking
didn't want to
taking
do all-
information, if you give me 1 second, taking raw data by department, uploading it to our legacy system, which is Lawson, and then exporting to a Crystal report writer the information, and that's how this was created. If you were asking, can I get all of the spreadsheets that put the budget together, it wouldn't come out in this format. It would come out in just raw data by line?
No, I was asking the opposite. Can you take this book and create one spreadsheet from it? I believe the answer is yes.
Yeah, it'd be 5,000 lines of data
Yes.
mapped to these accounts.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thanks. All right. Now my actual general government questions. General government. My first question is on page 4. The very first line, 101. I think it was the second slide or the third slide that you put up, Mayor. Talked about the 3% directive to everybody. So the mayor's office comes in at 4%. How is that possible?
The way we calculated that was, and we've done this in the past, City Hall is made up of a lot of departments, some of them small. So we looked at City Hall as a whole, and City Hall as a whole came in at 3%.
One other point,
I don't know,
Mr.
what
Chairman, if I
precedence
may?
does that set, Mayor? Your own department, you can't get it down to 3%. I see you're only over by about, if you look on page 46, you're only over by about $4,500.
Well, that,
Would you like some suggestions as to how to?
it does, it also, that does include the benefits.
Yeah.
And as I said at the beginning, in asking departments to reach 3%, we did not include the costs which really are not within the control of the departments.
You had a 9% increase in wages.
What we achieved was we said City Hall as a whole should go to 3%, and that's where we ended up.
City, you mean all general government?
Pardon?
What do you call City Hall as a whole?
All of the departments within, City Hall, legal, assessing, purchasing, risk, mayor's office, treasurer, tax collector, finance.
I
all,
don't remember exactly what the slide said, exactly how you directed.
community development, planning, all that, everything all together. Everything all together.
Like I said, you're only like $4,500 over. You could have set an example by finding $4,500 in that budget. The next question I had is on page 48. Legal, I'm looking at lines 55200 and 55421. Can you explain why the actuals through the third quarter was so much less than budget? And if that's the case, I mean, do you expect to spend close to budget for 2025? And if not, why would you plan similarly for 2026? Okay.
Every lawyer, we have 4, has to take 12 hours of continuing legal education in the course of the year. You have to have those 12 hours by May 31st of every year. When these actuals through March, many of us had not taken all of our required 12 hours. Typically, those get taken in April and May in order to meet the deadline. Way it happens.
So now we're halfway.
Let me finish my answer, sir. We also pay dues and fees to the New Hampshire Bar Association on order of the New Hampshire Supreme Court. Those are about $700 a year for each lawyer. We have other organizations we belong to as well that enable us to properly deal with the issues that come before us. Those fees and costs are typically due by June 30th of every year. So again, by March, we will not have run a 3/4 of the expenses. The expenses typically get pushed into the last quarter of the year. And that's what you see. That's why the run rate appears to be so low, because the expenses all come toward the end.
So now we're halfway through May. Would you expect that actuals are much higher and much closer to budget now?
They
Oh, I
are
get
quite a
6
bit higher.
Excuse me?
They still We've still got a couple weeks to finish the courses, and the dues and other fees to the Bar Association and the Supreme Court, those will typically be paid at the end of June. So that line is unlikely to be close to the total. We'll be closer to the total on the continuing legal education, that's the training line. We'll be closer, but I know myself, I've still got about 5 hours that I've got to get taken, and I will be doing that over the next 2 weekends.
So the short answer is you expect expenses to spike in the last month and a half of the fiscal year? To become
That
close
has
to
been
budget.
our experience, and
Close to
there's
budget.
good reasons why that's our experience. If we spent all that money in the beginning of the year, some
Understood.
emergency came up, it wouldn't be there. So we hoard it until the end when it's due and payable.
Yeah, but training is not, you're not gonna have any emergency training.
We get it done every year.
Okay.
We pay for it when we take the courses.
Okay, the next question I had was, on page 49, blah, blah, blah. It's row 55600, printing services under city clerk. Why is that? Why are those actuals so much less than budget? And why is, the following year's budget planned similarly?
That's for the general code books that we have, so all the ordinance books throughout the city. So that pays, that, I don't know if the mic picked it up, but it's the general code books for the city. So we do that annually, all the ordinance changes, we send to the vendor, they update our website, and they send us hard copies to update the ordinance books that the aldermen have, that the mayor's office has, legal, when they need to refer to the ordinances, throughout the course of business at City Hall.
And that gets done at the end of the fiscal year, every year?
It gets done annually. We actually have our order in now. We received our books, and we have the invoice that we're in the process of paying, but we received I believe it's it's either supplement 18 or 19, and those will be distributed, but it's an annual expense. When the Board of Aldermen pass the ordinances, they have to be updated in that book.
Okay, but again, that's an expense that's typically pushed to the very end of the fiscal year. Is that why this actuals are so low?
Yes, so it's typically around this time frame.
I had a question on page 52. Parking enforcement. The first two lines, 51,100 to 51,200. Again, why are the actuals so much less than budgeted through 3 quarters? And why is the following year's budget so close to so essentially identical to 2025?
I think you'll find across the book, there are many of those expended by March that are lower than the budget that's anticipated, and that's because the expenditures come after March.
These are wages. These are wages. I thought, did I call out the wrong numbers?
Liz Hannum might be able to answer this, but I'm going to suggest that all the positions aren't filled. We're trying to fill them, but like a lot of positions, they're difficult to fill. So when they're not filled, we don't incur costs, and therefore,
Okay.
this is like
So
this is where surplus comes from at the end of the year.
Okay, that leads it to
So probably those lines won't be fully expended by the end of June.
but you're expecting you're going to be fully staffed?
We hope to be.
Hope to be.
We hope to be.
Okay, so that kind of leads into a
Expect
question.
is a little strong.
So this leads into a question I had about,
Is that correct? Yeah, she's nodding yes. Okay. Yeah.
so that goes to a question I had about several departments. Do you budget for the staff you want to have, the staff the contract allows you to have, or the staff that you do have?
We budget for the staff, we think that's usually, that continues like, there are no new positions in this budget, so we budget for the positions that we think we need and that were in last year's budget. For example, you see, we got open positions here. The police department has open positions, but we don't say, oh, those positions aren't full, so we're going to cut those funds, because then if they get the officers, then there wouldn't be money to pay them. So we budget for a full complement.
So you're budgeting for guys you don't have, and you may not get.
Correct, but...
Okay, so you're like budgeting for ghosts.
But the point is that we need them, and we're trying to hire, and if we only budgeted what's actually in place, that would mean we would have to cut payroll, the number of positions, and there would be jobs that wouldn't get done.
Why would you have to cut positions? If you budget for the people that you have, the staff that you have, right?
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, the chief
said... did I cut you off? Did I interrupt you? I don't know. I'll take the police department as an example. They're down, I think now, 20.
Right.
And they hope to be down, but they're always trying to hire.
Okay, but those 20 guys are in his budget today, right?
So if we were to say, okay, we're gonna budget 20 less positions in that department, and it's not just police, it's elsewhere.
Right.
We're down drivers in public works and other things. So were we to just budget what was currently there, if the PD were to find, oh my God, we found 5 officers in Colorado that'll come and work for us, but we don't have any money.
You do.
We need the jobs. We've been authorized the jobs, but there's no money because we didn't. They wouldn't budget for the positions that aren't filled.
You had a slide there that showed supplemental authorization for 2025. You found $40 million, $20 million after the budget was approved. You found a bunch of money.
From the surplus, yes.
Well, from a surplus, some of it was from other departments, whatever.
Yeah.
So, if these departments budgeted for the people that they have, and then 2 months later, the chief says, hey, I want to hire 5 more guys, or the school department says, I want to hire 10 more guys, why couldn't you do a supplemental supplemental authorization? Go out and find that money. Think anybody's going to say no to hiring 5 more police officers? Of course not. You're going to find the money.
It wouldn't be,
You said
each step would require, when you do that, it requires a public hearing. It requires a lot of procedure, a special 10-vote majority. I mean, you could not react. It would take months to really react.
Mayor, you said, one of your slides said that 75 to 80% of the budget is staffing.
Correct.
So how much of that 75 to 80% is guys that are not really high, not really...
That aren't on the payroll?
Yeah. 10%? You also said...
No, it's not 10. I would say it's, we're down some paras in the school department. We're down police.
It's not insignificant.
I'm going to say 3%.
It's
2%. I don't know.
It's a significant amount.
Yeah.
That you're staffing, that you're budgeting for that are not on staff. And you said yourself, property taxes are high. You said that as part of your slides.
Yes.
And you said people are struggling.
They are.
What if they knew that you were budgeting and taking money for people that are not going to be on staff?
Just a couple things. The work that those people are earmarked for is being covered under overtime by other people. We can't have police activities stop because they don't have a person to hire, and that's true for all the divisions.
Okay, so if...
And also, I've been pretty lenient. You're over your 5 minutes, but if you have another question, you can ask it, but please wrap it up then.
But I see your point. I don't really agree with you, but I mean, I get the point. But the way we've done it and have done it in this budget is if we're trying to fill positions, but they're not filled, we still budget for them in the expectation or the hope that we can fill them and we'll have money to pay the people.
Okay, just one more response to that, and then I'll ask the
Yeah,
next
go ahead.
question. If you could hire them, you would have hired them in this year. You don't have them this year, there's no reason to believe you're gonna get them next year.
I don't think that's true.
I'm well past my 5
I
minutes.
mean, take the fire department for a while, I believe they were down, but now they're at full complement, so,
That's one department.
sometimes you can fill
That's
the
one
jobs,
department.
sometimes you can't.
Yeah, you've been pretty good, so if you have one more question, go ahead.
I'm looking, sir, I'm looking, sir. Is- No, that's all I have for this section, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that has questions on general government? Seeing no one, we'll move on to other general government, which is the Hunt Parking Economic Development. Are there any questions in that area? Seeing none, we'll move on to Public Safety Fire Department. Is there anyone that has questions relative to the budget for the fire department? Seeing no one, we'll move on to Public Safety, the Police Department. Does anybody have any questions relative to the Police Department? I brought that up. All right, you can come back. Other general government, that's the Hunt Building, Parking, and Economic Development.
Blah, 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 blah. I can't find the page, but I'm pretty sure my
working
question...
on the,
I know what it was, I know what it was. It was on page, it was revenue question. Okay, page 1. Parking enforcement, parking operations, revenue, considerably below budget through 9 months of 2025, yet budgeted similarly for 2026. How is that possible?
Now Liz Hannum is here, but I think I can answer it. You already pointed out that parking enforcement wages were less than budgeted. Revenues are also less because the revenues are tied to the number of people who are working. When there are less people working, there are less parking tickets, there's less revenue. So on both sides of the ledger, we're below budget. We'd like to fill those positions. We're trying to fill those positions. When they get filled, then the revenue will go up. Is that correct?
What revenue does the additional staffing create?
The additional what?
Staffing.
Staff?
Because staffing is down, that revenues are down.
Well, like, okay, right before, I'll give you an example. Right before this meeting, Tim Sennett, Alderman from Ward 7, and I were at a Ward 7 ward meeting. And we had people complaining that people are parking all night on their street and they only occasionally get a ticket. Well, it's because we don't have enough people. We don't, well, a lot of streets to begin with, but when we can't find the people to work all night, tickets don't get, issued, and the people on those streets are upset because the enforcement is not consistent. They have a valid point. Were we to be, we want to get up to, so we have enough people at the budgeted number, which hopefully we can. If we can, then the revenue will go up and we'll see better enforcement in Ward 7 on the overnight parking ordinance.
So you said hopefully we can.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I don't think you budget based on hopefully,
You
man.
need a job? You want to work all night?
No.
What? You seem like you do a good job. You're pretty thorough and everything.
I don't think you budget based on hopefully or maybe, man.
What?
That's not budget. When you budget based on hopefully or maybe, or possibly.
Well,
That's not budgeting.
it's not like we're just sitting around, we're advertising and, you know. If we didn't
Also-
have the money, we couldn't advertise for the jobs. We can't advertise for jobs if there's no money to pay the people.
Also, the next budget committee meeting, which I believe was, Donna, tomorrow? The next budget meeting, we're going to be talking about parking and what is it, parking enforcement. So the aldermen haven't even had a chance to ask questions on this, so you'll get more detail at that meeting if you prefer to come to that meeting.
Parking didn't present to you? Parking didn't present to the budget committee?
Tomorrow night is the hearing.
So you're gonna ask that question?
Excuse me?
You're gonna ask the question about revenue?
You can ask the question. You want to
Well,
ask?
you're
the
gonna
revenue?
ask. You're gonna ask tomorrow, right? You're gonna ask her tomorrow, right? Why?
Oh,
why
I'm
she's-
sure one of the aldermen are going to ask from the budget committee.
Okay. That's all I have for this section, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, they went through fire and police, we're up to public health. Any questions on the public health budget? Seeing no one, next is administrative services.
My name is Bill Ferrio, my home is number 35 Indian Rock Road. I have a few things here, administrative services. I think this is the section where I chose to ask about electricity. The city budgets a lot for electricity, and it's spanned across a lot of different divisions, departments, whatever. There's a lot of different lines in there for electricity, okay? And it's bizarre how some departments are assuming that their budgets, they're equaling the rate, they're equaling the budget for they're saying the 2026 budget is gonna be identical to the 25 budget, even though their actuals are significantly less. There are some departments that are assuming or estimating that their 26 budget is gonna be higher than their 2025 budget. Again, even though their actuals are so much less. Don't you think this is an item that should have some consistency, Mayor? Don't you think you should give direction as to how to estimate electricity expenditures for each department? You have an energy manager now. Huh? Can't she forecast what the rate's gonna be for the next 12 months? And then each department knows the number of kilowatt hours they've spent in the last 2 or 3 years. Why can't you base your electricity budget on that, as opposed to just, maybe it's gonna be the same as last year. I just use the same as
I
last
think there's
year.
more thought than that. Now, I don't think, is Doria here? She's not, the energy manager is not here, but, I can ask her to get back to you on that, but
This
she
is not
does
an
put a lot of thought into this.
This is
and-
not an insignificant expense to the city.
Well,
Mayor.
definitely it's not.
There's a
Now,
lot of-
there are also more than one electric contract, so there are different rates for different things, but, Dory could go through the budget with you and kind of go through the details. She is looking at it, it's not just guess, it's just not like throw a dart at the dartboard.
You know what, Mayor, if you look at this and you
Now,
look at...
Matt supervises, the energy manager. This is Matt Sullivan.
Good evening, Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director. Utility guidance is provided to all of the divisions and departments based on the energy manager's recommendation. And the energy manager works closely with the Administrative Services Division. That guidance is presented as part of the budgeting process. There are unique factors for every division, department, facility that drive the budget numbers that are ultimately included in the budget book. But to your question, the guidance is identical for every division and department, and they all talk to the energy manager during the budget development process.
Is any part of the directive to just put in the same budget for 2026 that you did for 2025?
That's not part of the directive. No, the directive is based on the rates that are used in the budgeting process.
So it's specific rate times some specific number of...
Not times a specific number. It's based on the kilowatt hour usage for each facility or department. That's the variable piece that you're seeing in the budget that results in different numbers. But the assumptions for the rates are the same across all divisions and departments.
So it's a specific rate that they're told to use?
Correct.
Why are all the numbers have almost no fidelity, though? They're all like rounded to the nearest $100. And why are so many of them identical? Was the directive last year identical to the directive this year? How is
So,
that possible?
I'll respond this way. I can't speak to the fidelity of the numbers. The departments are provided with a number that they use as the basis for their calculation. I'm sure there are rounding exercises that happen in some cases. I'm not arguing that that's not the case. But ultimately, when the departments receive that number, they look at their usage over the last year, they look at the changes to the rate, and they come up with a calculation. There are a variety of factors, whether it's energy efficiency improvements that are done, changes to the facilities that are done. It would require an ask to every single department to defend why their number is what it is, but they are all basing it on the same rate across everyone. So it's difficult to say.
If there's so many variables involved, it's bizarre that most of the 2026 electricity budgets are identical to the 2025 budget.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but ultimately I think the departments do an analysis of their prior usage and they've determined that that number is acceptable moving forward. I don't argue that that's coincidental, but I don't think it drives at any specific, factor that goes into the budget development.
I would suggest you get the energy manager involved, come up with a number with much more fidelity and much more accuracy. Thank you. Okay,
Of course, as someone who's trying to keep the budget down, if a department said we spent $1,000 in electricity last year and we expect to spend $1,000 this year, we don't say, oh, it should be more. Okay, you can operate on less. The rates have gone up a little bit, but you can use a little bit less.
No, it should be.
We're glad that they could be flat, not upset.
No. It should be a number with some basis and some backup and some justification.
Well, I agree with that,
If they go up 20%, okay, fine, but justify that.
I'm just making the point that when someone gives you a flat budget, you don't argue with it that much. We're trying to keep things down.
You do. You ask for basis on everything.
All right, well, maybe you're right.
On page 56, Administrative Services, there's a line item, vehicle repairs and maintenance, about halfway down, 54600. There's a $10,000 budget, actuals are zero. What vehicle does Administrative Services need to maintain?
Tim Cummings is the Administrative Services Director.
Good evening. Thank you. Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. The division has approximately 6 vehicles currently, actually working cooperatively with the fire department. I believe we'll be getting an additional 4 vehicles sometime next week. Thank you.
So the 10 vehicles, can you tell me what vehicles Administrative Services uses?
Tim, what are the vehicles for?
I'm
That's
sorry.
the question. The question is, what are the vehicles used for?
Oh, sure. Happy to answer that question. So they're used for a variety of reasons. It's more of like a pooled approach, a way to be efficient. So some departments don't necessarily have the vehicles, but they use the ones through administrative services. So community development, for instance, uses the vehicles, as well as the insurance risk department uses the vehicles as necessary. So they're used by various departments within the city.
So these are just passenger cars that happen to fall into your department?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So like if a building inspector goes out, he or she might be using the car that day. But there are a lot of people who use them.
Again, Administrative Services on page 61. There's a line item called Software Subscription Services. Significantly under budget for 2025 through the third quarter, but actually an increased budget for 2026. How is that possible? What is that, and why is that underspent? And Will that finish underspent, and why would you budget twice as much for 2026?
What is the line number?
55620, page 61. Budgeted 320,000, spent about half of it, and budgeted for 26 twice as much.
Can you find that?
Yes, I did. Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. It's my understanding that we file various contracts with the Finance Committee for approval. I believe we have a couple still due and pending as the year is still, we're still within this fiscal year, and I anticipate that we will be filing some additional contracts shortly that will spend down the rest of this money.
Okay.
Well said.
I just thought everybody would question this. On page 64, also administrative services. Looks like wages on the top line here, 51100. Wages to date are much less than budgeted, and budgeted similarly, actually more for 2026. Is that another understaffing thing? Is that another staffing the Hope Police?
I'm sorry, the question was relative to the wages?
Yes, it was relative to wages, full-time, being significantly underspent to budget for 2025, yet budgeted at an increase, a significant increase for 2026.
And I think this is a similar issue that was raised earlier this evening. I'm proud to report we're actually at full staff now. But at the time, we were down with 3 or 4 vacancies that we actually filled. Thank you.
At the time. On this same page, we talked about electricity, but on this same page, 54100, here's an instance where electricity is budgeted significantly higher for 2026. So it's, again, this is one that's higher. There are others that are equivalent. There's not a lot of consistency here, Mayor.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Chairman, that is correct. It should be noted that this is a bundled figure where there's quite a few buildings in the portfolio of buildings and grounds. So you'd see that be a little bit higher due to the fact that the number of buildings that this department oversees.
So the number of buildings is going to increase next year?
The rate went up by so much, so I believe the rate went up something like 15% year over year.
So here's an instance where he's justifying it by saying the rate went up, but there are a lot of other departments where the budget is the same. So did their rate go up? If their rate went up similarly, why didn't they budget higher?
Maybe they're planning to use less electricity. I mean, you would need to get into the specifics of the number with each department.
Right.
But if someone finds a way to save money, we don't argue with them too much. We're asking, we like it when someone saves money.
Are you all set? You got time for one more question in this area?
All right, I'll save it for a good one then. On page 66, Administrative Services, again. So there was a report that came from Whitney Consulting Group recently about the recommended staffing for assessing. And that's what this page is, assessing. And they kind of summarized by saying that they recommended that the city have more in-house staff for assessing and use contractors less. So my question is, does this budget reflect that? Does this reflect, does this align with, does this correlate with Whitney's recommendations? Does this budget change your staffing level to more in-house and less consulting?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, so the answer to the question is first, I don't believe Whitney Consultant went as far as to say that we should rely less on the contracting services, but they did suggest that the City of Nashua Assessing Department add an assessor in January of 2026. This budget does not reflect that, as we had the guidance given that we were adding no new positions to the department's budget, but it is something that I have made the mayor and others aware of, that there is this need, and when we have the ability to add positions in a future fiscal year, I think this would be one that we would try to look at instituting if other parties agree. Thank you.
So giving you a little extra time, but you'll have an opportunity at the end if you have additional questions in that area.
No, I've stood up here enough. Give someone else a turn. Thank you.
Okay, the next is public library. Any questions on the public library budget? Seeing none. Community Development Division. Any questions? Seeing none. Public Works and Engineering.
Bill Ferrio, 35 Indian Rock Road. Public Works is another instance where it appears that you've budgeted staffing more than you actually have right now. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, so this would be another instance where you could
We're,
do something
we're,
different.
I mean, the director, Lisa Foto, can speak to this, but we're down truck drivers. We need more truck drivers. We need more people to do the work, including snow plowing, and so we're out there trying to hire. Now, you're suggesting that if we need 15, and previously we budgeted 15, but we only have 10, that we only budget for 10, and then if we find someone to fill 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, we then ask for more money to hire them. Well, first of all, where would that money come from if it weren't budgeted?
Overtime?
And number two, we're having enough trouble finding people. If we said to someone, hey, we'd like to hire you, but, we actually don't have the money. We don't really have the money. We might be able to get it if in a couple of months, if we go to the Aldermen. We might be able to get it. So would you agree to work here? And I think the answer would be absolutely not. I'm going to take whatever other job I can get. I'm not going to take the chance that you don't have the, you're interviewing me and you don't have the money to hire me? Well, no, we don't, because we don't do that. It just would make hiring impossible.
I think you could,
I appreciate that you're trying to save money.
first of all,
really do,
that's a
but-
pretty lousy marketing
But
technique to use.
it comes out in the wash, because if in the end we do not fill the positions, we have money left at the end of the year, and it's used to
Something else.
do something that the city needs. So I don't think it would be a good practice to hope to fill positions for which you have no money.
I keep going back to 75% to 80% of your budget is staffing.
It's payroll, yes. Payroll,
Staffing.
payroll and benefits,
Staff.
yes.
And some of that doesn't exist today.
Some of it.
Some of them are ghosts. And I also come back to, you said property taxes are high. You said that. People struggle. You said that. I didn't say that.
But I also said that this year the Board of Aldermen voted to devote $6 million at the end of the year, the surplus at the end of the year, to keep the tax rate down for the following year. Now, if we use the practice you're suggesting, there would be no money to buy down the tax rate, because there'd be no money left at the end of the year. So,
But you'd
So-
you'd have the staff you needed, so you wouldn't have as much overtime.
well, no, when we're understaffed, we pay more overtime.
Yes, I understand that, but if you
So it
staffed...
actually costs more to be understaffed, not less.
Yes, I understand that, but if you staffed up, then your overtime would decrease.
Correct.
So part of that money that you need for these new employees, you could take from overtime, or you could take from electricity.
I don't think we could function in that manner. I don't. We could not hire people or seek to if we didn't have the money in the budget to pay them.
Thank you, thank you.
All right. Next, for the Department of Public Works. Yes, I see him.
Gary Hoffman, 38 Perham Street. Chairman Dowd, I just have a quick procedural question before I ask my question. How much time does a speaker get for each department?
They get 5 minutes, but I don't count the time that the question's being answered. So when the answer is being done, stop the clock. And I've been a bit of leeway with the 5 minutes, so.
Yeah, I would encourage us to keep to the 5 minutes, but that's just me as a public citizen. I guess my general question, just to reiterate the point, because it keeps coming up, Mr. Mayor, when there are open positions, oftentimes what would be that extra money in that budget would be spent on overtime or contractors. Is that correct?
Yes, it often is the case when the department is paying overtime. For example, if, in Public Works, we don't have enough people and a job needs to be done, it's done with overtime. Same police, same with the police department, same with the fire department.
So when there are open positions, it's likely going to cost more. And if you don't budget it, you can't, you would have to go to the alderman. That would take several months at best.
Well, a month at least.
Yeah, and it would actually have the opposite of the intended effect of lowering the budget, correct?
That's correct. And again, I'm repeating that we can't interview someone and say, we don't have the money to hire you, but we think we can get it.
Mm-hmm.
The way the job market is right now, that person would take another offer.
I think that answers the question. Thank you.
Anyone else on the Department of Public Works? All right, next we'll go to Financial Services Division, including surf, hydrant, street lighting, debt service, and contingency.
Bill Ferrio, 35 Indian Rock Road. I had a question on financial services, page 1. It's line 126, financial services. Why are actuals 280-something million compared to the $24 million budget? What is that?
Just a point of clarification, page 1 of 170.
Page 1, very first page.
Line 126,
Front and center. Yeah.
and you're asking if I...
How come
can hear you properly.
actuals through the third quarter are 280-something million?
Yes, so just a little background. We don't budget for property taxes. So if you look on the adopted budget, it's 24 million. Take the 24 million plus the property taxes, you get 288 million.
You don't budget for that. So that was, I guess that leads into my question is where are property taxes in this book? And it sounds like they're not really in the book other than that one line. There's not a line for revenue that says property taxes.
That's correct. Not in the proposed budget.
You don't budget for it. You don't budget for it. Why wouldn't you budget for it?
The question is, why wouldn't we budget?
Yeah, it's not revenue to the city?
It is revenue, but I've been here for 15 years, we've never budgeted it. And probably the previous 15 years, they didn't either. It's made up, you actually create it in November, December, when you send out the invoices or the property tax bills.
It's revenue, should be part of the budget. My last question is on debt services. Page 157, how does that table correlate to how does that correlate to I'm not going to be able to find it anymore. There was another page in the book that showed debt. There are actually several pages, but how does that correlate to page? Well, never mind, I can't find it.
Well, maybe I can help. I'm not sure
So
what
I guess
page
maybe
it
I'll
is, but-
rephrase the question. Is this the debt that gets paid down on page 157?
Yes, the page 157 captures the entire principal and interest debt service payments, not only in general fund, but other funds. So I think you were asking a question of the 22 million that the mayor showed on the slide.
No.
That's the sum of the city and the school. That is general fund debt service.
All right, I can't. I'll step aside. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else on financial services, including surf hydrants, lighting, debt service contingency? Seeing no one else, the last item on the agenda for tonight is education. Are there any questions on the education budget? Seeing none, Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the motion to table R-25-143, which is the pending fiscal budget for the year 2026.
Motion on the floor is to table the R-25-143, which is the budget for FY26. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, hang on a second. Oh, I'm sorry, you are right. You are right. Are there any additional questions?
Mr. Chairman, I can withdraw my motion.
Yeah, withdraw your motion.
Mr. Chairman, would like to withdraw my motion.
All right. Is there anyone that has any additional questions for any one of the divisions?
Bill Ferrio, 35 Indian Rock Road. I found what I was looking for. How does page 115, debt services, correlate to page 157?
Thank you, Alderman Kelly. Would have slipped right by.
All right, so Mr. Griffin can correct me if I'm wrong here, but 115 is the debt that's paid for by property taxes. 157 includes debt that is not supported by property taxes. For example, I'm turning to 157, but for example, in 157 is the Penachuk debt. There's almost $8,700,000 of payments, debt payments that are made every year. But but property taxes do not pay for that, because what happens is Pennachuck distributes to the city enough to cover that payment. So the city's on the hook for the debt, but we get the money from Pennachuck to make the payments.
So that would reduce page 157 by like 8 million, 9 million.
The wastewater fund, the debt in the wastewater fund, is not paid for by property taxes.
Either.
That's paid for out of the, entirely by the wastewater fees that you pay, the sewer fees that you pay, you as a homeowner or property owner that you pay. So that's not
So that's
paid for
about,
by
that's about
property tax.
16 million. So if you remove 16 million about from page 157, that does not get you to the 22 million.
The riverfront TIF, that's not, that, that does not come out of the property taxes that are paid for out of the general fund, because the TIF generates those funds from the properties around the river, and it's separately done.
Okay.
I don't think solid waste is in the list on 115 either. That is a separate enterprise fund, so it's not on page 115. But it would appear elsewhere in the budget, beyond page 157. This just kind of totals everything up, but you would see, for example, the wastewater debt under the on a different page, separately broken out. You would see within the wastewater enterprise fund, you would see the solid waste debt separately broken out on another page within the solid waste enterprise fund.
Thank you. That's enough. Thank you.
The special road and highway fund is another separate item that revenue goes into that, but anyway, it doesn't appear on page 115, that's all. But it would be shown elsewhere in the budget. 115 is just the general school debt and the general city debt, which is not supported by one of these outside revenue sources.
So is the income other than property taxes to pay off those debts, is that included in the budget someplace?
The one on 115?
No. You said that one of the tips, the Pennachuck thing.
No. Well, no, it is not, because it's not really it's not supported by property taxes. So the Pennachuck debt, money comes in, the city pays the debt, but does not contribute to that payment. So that does not appear in the budget, because the city is not appropriating money to satisfy that debt. We're just collecting, and we're like a pass-through.
All right, thanks, sir.
Any other questions of any of the divisions? Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the motion to table R25-143, which is the pending fiscal year 2026 budget.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to table the budget R25-143. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Budget's on the table till tomorrow night. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the motion to adjourn.
The motion on the floor is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 8:58 p.m.